If you are listening, you're listening to In My Fields. I'm
Yeah.
Emily.
I'm JRE.
we, we have some special guests here with us today. Two lovely producers, both in England or the UK right now. Would you guys please introduce yourselves?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Yeah, I am Willie Weeks, music producer from London.
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
I'm Geek Boy, music producer from Manchester.
Nice. Okay.
Wait, I wanted to ask, like, what made you go with Geek Boy and Willie Weeks, or is Willie Weeks your real name?
It's my real name. Yeah, I haven't really got much of a story on that one.
Okay, there we go.
My full name is William Weeks, but my brother just goes one day, he's like,
Okay.
Willie Weeks. I was like, that's more
Sounds
catchy
good.
than Williams.
That flows, for real.
I always think alliterative names are really cool. I feel like if you're a parent, you're giving your kid like a head start in life if you give them a name that alliterates. But Geek Boy, I think it was my friend John who suggested the name Geek Boy. I'm really rubbish at coming up with names for things, and including producer artist projects or anything like that. But I'm a bit of a nerd. If it wasn't obvious,
Nah.
I'm super into like video games and comics and movies and things like that. So it felt sort of natural. And also I do feel like my music production is probably like, I'm probably as influenced by the music and the video games that I played growing up as I was by the pop music and stuff like that.
For sure.
And sometimes like that manifests in like an obvious way, like sort of chip-tuney sort of sounds, but sometimes I think this is more subtle, like a certain chord progression that reminds me of Zelda or something like that.
No, that makes sense. A lot nowadays, especially maybe in the last like 10 years, video games has been a big influence in music and in hip hop, for real. Like, I've been hearing it everywhere.
So before we get into this, for people who may not be aware of you guys have worked with a lot of Korean and Japanese artists, most notably SF9 on Good Guy and Now or Never. And most recently, their most recent album, story album, if you want to call it that they just came out with. Also, you guys have worked with MONSTA X on Follow and Fantasia, and then also CRAVITY as well.
Nice.
And then you also worked with GOT7 and BTS and Taeyeon and EXO-CBX and like so many others as well.
Hey.
And then a Japanese boy band, which our producer, she is a huge fan of Arashi. You guys worked with as well. So a huge lineup that you guys have worked with. But Geek Boy, you mentioned the Zelda sort of like influence. I think of like Good Guy and the was that like the intro to it? Was that like an inspiration from, I don't know, a video game?
Maybe not consciously. I'm trying to remember the intro to Good Guy.
That was fun. Good knowledge.
Was it?
Yeah, I was impressed. Probably on key as well. You just smashed it.
It's this.
No, I do remember. It's the wah 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 wah.
Yeah.
Wah.
Yes, that's it.
I don't know if I was consciously thinking about Zelda, but I do think a lot of those kind of like seventh chords and stuff, you find them in like, you know, Koji Kondo's music for Zelda and that sort of thing. I mean, I probably, like, I didn't really grow up listening to like jazz or anything. So hearing those slightly more kind of complex compound chords, I probably heard that sort of stuff in Zelda before I heard it in anything else.
It literally sounds like you like mess with a monster from Zelda's voice and just like warped it each time. I was just listening to it now. I was like, you could have just made that line and sampled the monster from Zelda.
Yeah, it really does. That Now or Never are very different vibes from, you know, Willie Weeks. You worked with or follow, you know, Fantasia, very hard, intense songs like MONSTA X normally comes out with. I wonder with that song, or just in songs in general for both of you guys, but Willie Weeks, with those two songs in particular, the stage that ended up coming out of it with the music video and the performances, was it what you envisioned when you were making the song and what you saw from or envisioned it to be, I guess?
Oh man, I think for me it's definitely always better because yeah, I mean, it's just amazing when you see your song like finally getting performed live and like people enjoying it. So I guess that always hypes it up more. But yeah, I think also when you're writing a song, you always have like in the back of the mind, like if they were doing this in like a stadium, like what would the intro be? And like if they had that first couple of notes, would that like get the crowd like hyped just by hearing like a couple of, you know, notes of the hook? So I know like whenever, you know, good producers are writing, you're thinking about those sounds and melodies that get people excited from the get-go. So yeah, definitely thinking about the stage show and like what would make a good entrance and that kind of thing, good energy. But I mean, yeah, you can't really like, there's so many different ways of writing songs having impacts on people. So just like when you see it, when it's done, the song's as good as you can make it. And then if the reaction's great when you see it live, that's mind-blowing for me. Like that's probably one of the best rewards of making music, just seeing people go off to the tunes. Yeah.
That must feel good, like when you, like in the studio, you make it and this was meant for the crowd to get hype, and then you see it actually happen into like live action,
especially when you've heard it like a million times and you're sick of the tune, and it gets a fresh new lease of life because then you're seeing everyone listen to it for the first time.
I like that. Do you guys, once it comes out, do you go to like search for fans, like dance covers or just like covers of it in general?
Reactions.
Yeah, reactions. Yeah.
Sometimes I am guilty of having a little scroll through the YouTube comments and saying, oh, what are people saying about this song? And it's always gratifying when the fans like it.
Of course. It makes sense.
I've only watched that, I think, when the MONSTA X singles came out there, because there's like quite a few reaction videos. So just seeing like there's some funny characters out there, man. And just like seeing,
for sure,
especially like
different personalities.
I mean, not even just the girls, some of the guys as well, like starting to cry when they like see the intro. I mean, they're probably crying more at the members of the band like looking sexy than the music, but
and the actual music.
It's good entertainment. Like.
That's always kind of a good way to like check your ego when you're watching a reaction video and they're like, whoa, and you're like, yeah, my sick drop, and they're like, he looks so hot in that suit. Those dance moves there. And you're like, oh, okay, they weren't shouting about the track, they were shouting about the outfits, but that's fair enough. You know?
It's always like that.
Nah, I always look forward to the drop in like whenever I do a reaction, just because I'm like, there's so many drops in Kpop. I'm like, oh, how are they gonna fool me this time? Because I've been doing it so much that I could predict the drop. So if there's a producer out there that could like trick me, I'll be like, oh, okay, it's a different ball game here.
Have you done that on your? Because that should fully be like a YouTube show, like predict the drop and then see if you could have guests on that. That's
predict the drop on this song.
That's a genius idea, Dre. You should do it.
Oh my God, you can gift it to me, please?
I don't feel like I invented it. I feel like you essentially said it and then I fed the idea back. It's like Inception or something. I don't know. Like
you guys should work together.
Yeah, I would love to do something like that. I don't know if I'll ever do it on my YouTube, or even, I don't know, it could be a collab. All right, let's see. How often do you work with the artists themselves? And if you have, what is the experience like compared to working separate with only the A&R?
I've never worked with the artist in Korea or Japan or anywhere in Asia. Definitely in the UK and like in America, that's quite common. I'll probably say the same. Like you're often in the room. I mean, I'd love to go over and like even like for the tracking vocals and just to be there for that part of the process. Definitely getting closer now where they're like, there's some releases where you're involved in the mix and stuff like that. But I've never worked with the artist, so that's not really a very interesting story for you guys.
No, it's all good.
My answer to this question is very short because I've also not worked with the artists, not in Asia.
Well, then in that case, well, I think then that leads to like, you know, if you're not working with the artist, like you're not really meeting them, you know, how you must become very close with the A&R and obviously the direction that they want you to kind of go in. And beforehand, we were kind of talking about it, but, you know, you guys, in addition to being in the studio together with each other for however many hours for the song camps, you guys will go out, drink, fellowship with each other afterwards. What kind of relationships do you build with A&R? Because we know, like, you know, you guys probably network amongst each other, you know, songwriters, producers, and top liners.
I don't know if I can kind of generalize because obviously everyone's kind of different, but
for sure,
I suppose the one thing I really appreciate about like A&R, I feel like A&Rs in Asia in particular, generally they seem to have like a very clear idea of what they want, and that's just really useful because you don't you don't have to spend much time second guessing. Like they're clear with what they like, what they don't like, and they sort of, I feel like in the West there can sometimes be a little bit more indecisiveness. So that's something I like about Asian A&Rs. But just in terms of kind of, yeah, like going out and socializing with people and stuff, Asians generally are incredibly generous. Like it's very much part of the culture that, you know, it's kind of a host culture. Like if you're the guest, they consider it a point of pride to take you to really nice restaurants and, you know, go out for Korean barbecue or fried chicken or something like that. And so I always feel spoiled rotten when I'm in Asia. It's, I'm always really grateful because it's so much fun. Because, I mean, I've never properly got to really like travel much in Asia. I'm always just there, like in the studio every day. But I don't really begrudge that as long as I get to like go out like for a beer or, you know, some afterwards, go for some decent food. Like that's enough, really.
The last time we went to Korea together, like the A&R basically made sure that we went to a different food place every lunch, dinner, like for the 5 days, whatever it is. So that was like a big part of the hanging out and the culture, and like it's the best part for me as well, just having those hangouts and kind of thinking about the day and just having a bit of a chill.
And you get to know them better. I always feel like drinks always get to know the person better.
Yeah, and it means when you come back home as well, like to the UK, for us, you've kind of got that closer relationship, and you know, it can be it can be like always a bit awkward when you're texting people all the time. But when you know their face and the way they act and where they are, like it just becomes more natural, and there's like obviously a deeper level of trust and stuff like that. So it's always good for, you know, songs and just the general relationship of the two companies. So that's cool.
You know, speaking of like drinks and stuff, what is the most, for both of y'all, what is your most wild studio story that you can think of?
Wild, quote unquote.
No, I'm not a very wild person. I'm quite boring, really. I don't know if I've got any particularly. I can certainly tell you embarrassing studio stories.
Okay.
I mean, the last time I was in Tokyo, I had a session that I was quite nervous about because it was for a big boy band, and you know, the A&Rs were there, and they had rented this really big, like really nice studio. And I got there and I arrived and I was kind of, you know, unpacking my laptop and I suddenly realized that I didn't have my external hard drive with me, which had like all my audio, all my projects. I'd left it in my hotel room, and they're kind of looking at me expectantly, and I'm like, oh no. And thankfully, this happened to be like the one session. It was in Shibuya, and this happened to be like the one session that was walking distance from my hotel. Like I hadn't had to get a train. So I ran back to my hotel, but this was like there was a heat wave. That it was October, but it was a weirdly warm October. You know, it was like August weather or something. So I ran back in this really hot heat, and of course that was the day that they were doing maintenance work on the lift in my hotel. So I had to literally like run up to the 8th floor to get to my room, to get the hard drive, to run back to the studio. And so there was, hey guys, so just got the hard, and sweating. And I'm kind of thinking, wow, I've really kind of blown it here. I just look like an idiot. Thankfully, they were pretty impressed with my work in the session, so I think I kind of won them round. But there must have been a moment where I was thinking, gosh, we've got this guy over from England, you know, because we thought he was this great producer, and he's an idiot.
Messed up out the gate. No. I feel like those are the times when like you're just kind of pressured, and like when you're in crunch time, then things happen. Beautiful things can happen from it. What about you, Willie?
I definitely try and keep it professional when I'm working, like, especially being invited somewhere. Maybe like a cool wild one. I was working in Abbey Road once doing a mastering session, and there was like so much hype around. There's like orchestras milling around, but it was like one of those ones where they weren't allowed to say anything. I was like, I put my nose in the door, and like, I think it's like a security guard said, "You got to get out of here." I was like, "What are they doing? What are they doing?" I said, "I can't say anything," but basically like, I Am Your Father or something like that. I was like, oh, Star Wars, okay, sick. So they were recording like the orchestra for Star Wars the same day we're there, but obviously not allowed to say anything so that people don't know that there's a new movie. I think it's just before 7 came out, so like the new trilogy were just like being launched.
How does the surrounding vibe of your studio affect your work, if at all? Does it help to have other people around?
I think so, definitely. I mean, I can work very happily like on my own. I mean, like working in the studio on my own or working at home on my own is not an unusual thing for me. But I think with this global pandemic, you know, because that's become pretty much my only way of working. Yeah, I am really, really missing I think the interactions you have in the studio and the inspiration that sparks, just being in a room with other people and the energy that you vibe off and stuff. It's a very different thing, and I am really sort of missing that. I think I'm very, very grateful that we live in an age where we can work remotely, and I can send somebody a beat on the other side of the world, and they can send me back the top line and stuff. But yeah, I think definitely keeping myself inspired and motivated has probably for me been like the biggest challenge in this whole kind of global pandemic situation, with not being around other people.
For the one to say, like, I always feel more inspired and like almost produce my best stuff when I'm around other people, even like people you don't know, because then there's like, you know, you feel like you have to kind of raise your game if you're meeting new writers, especially when you travel as well. You feel like there's an added pressure of like needing to deliver, and yeah, that's a good thing. Like, I think, I mean, I really enjoy that personally, and then just the fun of like vibing off someone, and you're always getting like better melodies. And even as a producer, I like to like throw out melodic ideas, and most guys will be happy to throw like production ideas, and again, something that you might not, you know, you'd never have thought of if you were just on your own, which is super cool and like way more fun. But yeah, as I said, I'm also happy in my own company as well. So,
are your working hours affected at all by the COVID you know, thing? Obviously, without traveling, being, you know, in your studio by yourself now. In those cases, like, are you working at random hours of the day, or do you try to keep a routine?
At the beginning, like, it went crazy, like almost like an explosion of songwriting, because a lot of the songwriters that we were working with who might have been part-time or, you know, trying to do other stuff, they were suddenly home and like nothing to do apart from songwrite 24/7. So we had almost like, you know, a sea of writers to pick from, and like at one point the publishers were like, you know, you stop sending us songs because there's like not enough going on to like deal with all this kind of thing. So yeah, like for me, it definitely is like been amazing to be a producer at this time, because there's been like still, you know, releases going on. It definitely slowed down. I felt like June, July, just because obviously in Asia as well, they had to like slow it down a little bit, and like a few things got pushed back right out. So it's just kind of waiting for it to get back, and it feels like it's definitely getting back to normal now. It's like the steady flow of briefs and stuff, but we can always be busy like creating new stuff that, you know, could be for the future, and just stocking up on them special little songs for the unexpected moment.
You mentioned the word briefs. What is that?
So brief is what you get sent by the label, the A&R, like briefing you on what they want for the releases. So they'll be really specific, actually. They'll give you like references, so they'll send you like YouTube links to existing songs saying, want a little bit like this, want the top line to be a little like this, and then here's some stuff that the band's done before, and then they'll be like, yeah, this is what we want the single, or, you know, this is what the B-side is going to be like, and then we got other slots. So yeah, we're constantly getting those through.
So you guys have worked with obviously a number of different K-pop labels. You know, thinking of the SM brand, they are super heavy on vocals and like harmonizing and all that stuff. How do you guys, when it comes to a group that's like really great with their vocals, like EXO or just someone like Taeyeon, who is just, you know, amazing singer in general, how do you try to cater what you create towards like their voice or maximizing their voice compared to a group that maybe, you know, has okay vocals and maybe a few rappers, and more it's about the sound and the vibe of the entire song, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it definitely, yeah, you're always, when you're creating a track, you know, from a brief, and you've got a particular group in mind. Yeah, you're thinking about, I mean, a group, say, that has loads of kind of vocals stacked and big vocal harmonies and stuff. If the instrumental is too busy, there's going to be no room for that energy. So yeah, you definitely think in the production about how would there be room for this type of vocal, or, you know, this type of way of producing supports this type of vocal more.
I would definitely, because the competition's so high, and it's like almost such a saturated market where, you know, everyone can, you know, have a stab, and so many people are sending songs to A&R. I think it's even got to the level now where you have to like submit a demo where it almost sounds like the band as well. So we'll be like picking vocalists from, you know, the people that we know that sound like Taeyeon, or if it's EXO, that have the sort of tone for them. If it's the more aggressive thing like MONSTA X, I couldn't, you know, send in a demo that sounds too soft or, you know, like too sweet. You need to find the guys that have that like right aggression for the raps and stuff like that. So it's almost like going up a level from just creating a demo song. You have to almost make it sound like each of the bands that you're submitting to, so they hear it and they think, yeah, this is us, we could do this. Like, they're performing it like we want to, like give them like the package of, you know, this is what you need, this is what you should sound like.
I'm thinking of like specifically Fantasia, when Juhani, he has that really intense, like, I gotta feel, he says it like really intense. Whoever you know got for that part, did they say it just like that, or was it like you know, they will change up a few things, if that makes sense?
So MONSTA X, they always redo their raps, but yeah, the guy I wrote, the two guys I did the song with, yeah, they went in on the energy as well. So it was like completely different flow and like different rhythm, but the energy was just as hard. And then yeah, Juhani obviously just like redid all the lyrics and the timing and like his own flow, and probably went even harder, I'd say, on the energy as well, which is cool. Yeah, so they're like, most bands seem to do their own raps, so you just need to like insert the vibe for them and for them to like exaggerate, kind of thing. But yeah, that was what happened in that one.
Interesting.
I don't know how many times you've been interviewed before. How many times?
Not many.
Not many, no.
Okay. No, like, I was just wondering, because I don't know if you get the same questions that we always ask, but we're curious, what's a question that you wish people would ask you more? Like, what would interest you if somebody asked you, like, oh.
Or like aspiring producers who are like trying to, you know, follow their path, I guess.
I think when I was growing up, I used to always like, you know, the guys that you aspire to, with like Max Martin or Pharrell and those kind of guys. You just want to know like how to sound like them, or even how to get close to like recreate things or create your own version of, you know, what they do. So I think for me, it's kind of a bit of a what do you call it, a taboo, but like sharing the gear that you use. So obviously, like, people, if I'm listening to a podcast with like one of my favorite guys, I want to know what they're using, like the synths, like the plugins and stuff, which is the kind of the more geekier stuff, but it's what, you know, will like make a difference and like move you forward in your production and your career almost, because like, you know, like, okay, I'm working on a level, even if it's like unattainable and it's like gear that's worth like thousands of pounds, you can like, okay, so they're dealing with like something that's out of my league, but you know, one day I can get there at least. But, yeah, I think it's that kind of ballpark for me, like just getting the insight into what they're actually doing, because sometimes they keep it so like to their chest, and like they even like make it up. They're like, they show you their computer, but you know it's like nothing's like actually what they did on the track. They're like, yeah, this is what I did, and they just play the whole thing. You're like, oh, help me out, man.
Okay. What about you, Geek Boy?
It's a really good question, and I'm struggling to think of an answer. Like, you know, what do I wish I had been asked? I'm not sure, honestly.
How'd you look so good, bro? Where do you get your t-shirts from?
Do you know what? That is genuinely a question that I wish people would ask me more. Sometimes I'll wear. Do you ever like? I have certain T-shirts that I'll kind of put it on in the morning, thinking somebody at some point today is definitely going to compliment me on this T-shirt, and then when it doesn't happen, it's heartbreaking. It wrecks you.
Okay, so where did you get your T-shirt?
I think this one was from a website called So Scribbly or something.
So like we said, you guys have worked with, or you guys have mentioned, you guys, you'll go on, these trips to Asia, from Seoul to, Tokyo, and then to Taiwan. But you've done work within K-pop, but specifically for Japanese releases. Is that musical process any different than just a K-pop song or album going out for the Korean audience? And if so, what are the differences?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few bits, like my BTS release was a Japanese one, and recently the Taeyeon single I just did was her latest Japanese release. And there's definitely a difference, like the music's like way more musical, like production, like the kind of like the coolness is definitely like a few years back, which is all right. But you have to think about that as well. And yeah, they're usually like a little bit more melodic and emotional feeling. So yeah, and that's just like a generalization, but yeah, that's what I found when the artist definitely released something that feels a bit different.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say it is usually the music is a bit more kind of melodic and stuff, but it's still not as different as just like straight up J-pop, because J-pop is like another difference again. And that's so much more. You can be so much more creative in terms of your chord progressions and the kind of mad arrangement stuff that you put in J-pop.
Oh, that makes sense. For sure, yeah. Especially in K-pop and J-pop, it's really different.
When I think of J-pop, I always just think of like anime type theme songs, I guess.
Yeah, I think anime intros are more like J-rock, I feel. But
sometimes I will get briefs that say, "Oh, this is going to be a tie-in with an anime or something like that." And one of the Arashi songs that I produced was I don't think it was actually used on One Piece, but the music video was all like One Piece characters. It was like the members of Arashi were like cartoon characters, and they got like sucked into the world of One Piece.
Okay, but
oh, that's cool.
So you had to get that vibe of like a One Piece kind of vibe.
So then, are you working with like Universal Music Japan, or are you still working with, like, let's say you're doing a K-pop release, or I mean, obviously, if you're working with a J-pop artist, like, is it normally those large Universal Music type labels, or they're like the group's labels themselves?
Johnny's is one of the biggest labels that we've been working with recently, right, Al?
Oh.
Yeah. We've worked with Johnny's, we've worked with Nishion, we've worked with a lot.
Most of them are not actually with a bigger, I mean, they might be like affiliate, they might be underneath Universal at some point, but yeah, that we are usually working with their derivatives, like the smaller, like, well, they're not small, they're huge companies and huge bands, but
Is there any like difference between making music for an established group versus a rookie group, like let's say MONSTA X versus CRAVITY?
Oh man, yeah, definitely, I think so. I think with rookie groups, you find out, I think the labels, it's almost like you're just shooting all like your best songs, and they're just looking for a song that's like an undeniable smash. It's just gonna like grab everyone's attention. Yeah, they're probably still like, they probably have a good idea of like the branding of the band, but they're still just gonna like sharpen it, over the next few releases. So it's almost like, it feels like a free for all. Like you can just send them your best tunes, and then obviously they'll jump on whatever's great. But I find that's quite difficult, obviously, because then, there's nothing to go on. You don't know what they sound like or what they look like, and, what their branding is. So that's almost a little bit harder, I think. Whereas like an existing, for me, MONSTA X, you know exactly what they're going to want. Probably the harder thing with that is finding what's next for their journey when they've already done like so much music and like not stepping on the toes of other songs, which is, quite a challenge if they've done like 5 albums, and they usually reference stuff that they've done before of their own music. So you're like, well, I can't just copy that. And I find like usually the best thing you can do is like just give them what they didn't know they needed, which is like our kind of little game usually, just to like I was telling you about the briefs, just to look at that and yeah, just kind of think about how can we come in at the side and like give them something that would work for the band that no one else is doing, because they're going to get like 100 of the same songs. So
Yeah,
let's send them something that is slightly
just
different.
stands out.
Yeah, which is how it kind of works for us.
What's really tough as well is occasionally when you get, I've had this occasionally, I'm sure you have as well, Willie, like when you get a brief and literally one of the references is one of your songs that you produced for them previously.
I don't get that one, bro. That's just you.
But that's hard because like, well, what do I do? Like, I can't just do like another version of what I did because it'll just be a not as good version of the thing I did before. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's when you need to like give them something different and reinvent the wheel almost. It's really hard. Like.
That's interesting. Like thinking specifically recently enough with SF9, I'm thinking back to like Now or Never, and then they went into like a kind of, they had two other songs that are singles that came out after that, and then they had Good Guy, which was kind of similar to Now or Never, that sort of EDM, or what's it called, dance song sort of thing, and maybe like if they were right after the other, it would have hit as hard. But I think a lot of people really like those two songs for like what they were and like how different but like similar they were too. That's interesting. Thinking about, you know, rookie groups and how, and I wonder like if what it's like to, when you know that you're pitching or you're sending things in for a new iteration or like subunit of a group. Like we mentioned, EXO, CBX, like, you know, we know that EXO is stacked with these vocals, but they're doing something different with 3 of the members. Like, how do you know, make sure that it's different enough, but like still on brand. They're on brand, yeah.
Like I love the NCT like derivatives as well, like the Dream thing, which obviously they're kind of like similar, but then they'll like break into like the more like R&B kind of like hip hop side of things, like slightly softer, cooler, but still with this, you know, swaggy beats and all that. I just think like, yeah, it's like I was saying, you just find the elements that are true to like the band. I think a lot of it's in the vocal that almost keeps it like the consistency. Like they're always going to sound the same because they can't change their voices. So then you just like take a few things and like tweak those to like put it in that new branch where it's like they go a bit harder, they go a bit more trappy rap, like with the EXO. CBX thing, or that NCT Dream, like I was saying, you kind of then have to like go to that new neo soul kind of thing and like find your chords and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun, and that's why there's so much freedom in K-pop, because you can like almost hit any kind of genre or subgenre, and there'll be a place for the song because they've got like, everything covered. So
I feel like there are a lot. It's a lot more sort of genre blind in Asia. Like you can, I mean, this is what people love about K-pop is like you can have a song that's like a kind of totally happy bubblegum pop tune, and then it sort of goes into like an insane hard trap drop with all 808s, and you can mash genres together in a way that you just couldn't really in the West, and that's why I think it's so much fun for producers like me and Willie. It's funny because when you were talking just then, I was thinking about like, because I'm pretty sure my first K-pop cut was an EXO CBX Japanese release. So it kind of ties together some of the things you say about like a subgroup of a group and it's a Japanese release.
Yeah.
And but it was a few years ago now when like kind of future bass, that whole kind of big stabs chords thing was still quite sort of novel in K-pop. So that was kind of, it was like, well, I can do something that would feel like it would work as an EXO track, but I can bring in the future bass elements. And so I guess that was my approach with that one.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that is like a new subunit, Japanese release, a lot of elements, new things to consider.
But that's sometimes that's one of the sort of, it's the hidden, I don't know if you find this, Willie, but like if you're trying to solve those types of problems, sometimes if it's like, oh, what should this pre-chorus bit sound like, or what should this chorus sound like? It was like, well, I've never heard this genre and this genre before, and I feel like I could make this work. So instead of thinking like, oh, you know, approaching this like a Western song, it's like, what would this chorus sound like if it's like a standard trap R&B song? It's like, no, what if the verse was that, but what would the chorus sound like if it was something totally different?
Mm.
It's like you're saying, Dre, as well, like the element of surprise, man. You need to have
Yeah.
that as well, so they just don't get, you know, too doled out in on the song. Like, check out, you want to like suddenly smack them with a bit of like grunge rock and then back to your trap or something.
Be crazy, yeah. I'm pretty sure I heard that in K-pop once or twice. Just like threw me off. I was like, oh, okay. I
Yeah.
think those are the best though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
So, what producers have inspired you all?
That's a really good question.
Great question.
I mean, like growing up, I was always super into like dance, electronic-y sort of music. So, like The Prodigy, Orbital, that sort of like 90s British dance music. And I think I think you can. There are definitely tracks I've done for Asia where you can hear some of those influences. Like more recently, like a lot. I'm really into all that kind of sort of like happy kawaii Doflin type future bass music, all kind of blog music that people kind of would start with people like Wave Racer and Cosmos Midnight and people like that, and yeah, those types of producers. But and video games as well, like we were saying, like I definitely think I'm as influenced by video game soundtracks that I played when I was a kid as the music from, you know, on the radio growing up and stuff.
Nice.
For me, like, I'm really thankful. I grew up listening to like a lot of old soul, like Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin, and then like more geeky music like Tower of Power and Steely Dan, which was like my organically, like I learned to play instruments and stuff. And then the producers wise, it was like I was saying before, just got encapsulated by guys like Pharrell, who used to do that with like NERD, where they used to do like the band thing and flip it up with like and obviously like crazy top like songs and beats and stuff. And then from following on from that, I definitely had like a pop obsession. So, you know, like Max Martin's kind of like number one for that, because he can work with anyone, you wouldn't know it was him. Then I had that, there's like this problem where you want to do like everything you do well, not be like trying to do every different genre not properly. And there was a guy called Fraser T. Smith, who's like the master of doing that, where he like, he'll do something with like Stormzy and it'd be like the hardest, most like authentic like grime, you know, like hard beats, and you're just like, damn, this is like killing me. And you look at the credits, it's like, oh, it's Fraser T. Smith, like damn. And then you like go to like some sweet like pop, you know, Taylor Swift thing, you're like, who did this is amazing. It's like, oh, it's Fraser T. Smith. And the same with Max Martin. Like happened like all the way through, like me, like the songs that have like flipped me out on the radio, whether it's like Ellie Goulding or all these kind of, you know, when they put a good song out, it's always been Max Martin, and just like reinventing themselves, like staying up to date. But then obviously the obsession with details and like, just guys like that really inspire me. So
nice.
Yeah.
Geek Boy, you mentioned that you're a gamer, and Wendy was wondering, have you played Among Us or any other games lately?
The new games?
Yeah.
No, the last game I bought was Mario 3D All Stars, mainly for the nostalgia of getting to play Mario 64 again. Like a lot of people I spent a big chunk of the early months of lockdown just playing a lot of Animal Crossing. But
of course.
Animal Crossing is kind of like an all or nothing game, and it almost became kind of a bit of a full-time job. So there was a certain.
About you, bro.
There was a certain point. I mean, I went in hard. I got into like turnip trading and
yeah. There's a whole stock market in there.
Yeah, there's like websites that will use algorithms to predict the price of your turnips and stuff. But there was a certain point where I suddenly realized that it had become a bit too much like hard, like waking up every morning to like run around my island banging rocks and stuff.
There you go.
And then The Last of Us 2 came out, and that kind of derailed my my Animal Crossing for a bit. I just got, obviously, because that game was incredible.
Did you like Last of Us 2? Like the whole game itself?
Yeah, I
Because
thought
there's mixed reviews.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, the gameplay itself is really, really good.
It's
The
great.
story elements, I can definitely see why they upset some people. It's funny. I almost wonder if I need to play it again because I don't know if I've fully decided whether I liked it or not. But there's definitely like there's characters where your sympathies shift and you're like, oh gosh, I really liked this character and I feel like you're doing some quite unpleasant things. I'm trying to be vague because I don't want to ruin it for anyone who might not have played it.
Don't want to spoil it too much.
But there was definitely a bit towards the end of the game where you're supposed to fight someone, and the first time I just didn't. Like I just let the other character beat me up and kill me because I was like, I don't want to fight you.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw what they were trying to do, but yeah.
I'm guessing you didn't love it.
I mean, I only seen it like one. I didn't play it. That's why but I saw my friends play it like on stream. I was like shocked the whole time. I was like, oh man, it kind of messed with me. I might still play it though, because it intrigues me.
Interesting. I guess I know the storyline, and now I'm thinking about it. You're right. I believe it's an accurate depiction.
No, but I like the game. I always like that series. I love the producers, Naughty Dog.
I mean, all their games look incredible. They're works of art.
Okay, but we have one last question for both of you guys from Wendy. How did you find your sound? Like after being inspired by everybody else, how did you figure out your sound that works for you?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's definitely something about the particular chord progressions, and it's interesting. A lot of the feedback that I get, one of the consistent things that a lot of songwriters and top liners will say to me is like, oh, you always have really great chords or whatever. And so I think trying to get in the more sort of sevenths and ninths and stuff, not like necessarily into every song because it's not always appropriate, but I think definitely having those slightly more jazzy chord progressions is one of the things that I think for me was kind of key. And again, like, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but yeah, I think the video game influences and the sort of thinking about music in a slightly more narrative way, of like, how does it make you feel, or how would this work as a video game soundtrack? Does it evoke a certain emotion or whatever?
Okay. What about you, Willie?
Definitely for me, it's been a bit of a long one just because of, like I was saying, the mismatch of like being able to play different things. I mean, I think it's always like been that mishmash of like programs, sounds, and like live instruments. But I think like I've probably found in the last couple of years, I found my special happy place, which is like the really angry, like aggressive music type. It's probably why the MONSTA X thing has worked. And like my publisher makes me laugh because he's like, you're such a chill guy, like you're so quiet, and like when I speak to you, you're so calm. It's like, and then you send me these beats and they're like so angry and like loud, and like it's like my alternative like personality kind of. That's cool. I really love making that kind of music as well, and it's like really fun to let it all loose in the studio.
Yeah, it's your cathartic release, maybe. I think this has been a great interview, a great conversation. Can you guys tell everyone where they can find you on social media and find your work, if you have like a content page as well? But yeah, social media mainly. Yeah, well, mine are all pretty easy because all of the social medias, I'm just at Geek Boy Music. So Instagram, Twitter, soundcloud.com/geekboymusic, facebook.com/geekboymusic, and I'm on Spotify, Geek Boy.
Instagram and Twitter, I'm just at Willie Weeks. And then if you want any more information, probably like website willieweeksmusic.com.
Well, that's it for In My Feels. I'm JRE.
I'm Emily.
I'm Willie Weeks.
I'm Geek Boy.
And we'll see you guys later. Bye. Thank you.